Okay, so I chose to do my research on the construction of the Golden Gate Bridge right here in San Francisco. For a little background on the project, construction began on January 5th, 1933, and at the time, most people thought a bridge like that could not be built, or if it would cost around $100 million. However, Joseph Strauss was an American structural engineer who came forward and said the construction of the bridge would not only be feasible, but also could be done at a cost of only around $30 million. Over 10 years later, the city was ready for a new era of transportation, getting ready to build the bridge that would connect San Francisco to its northern neighbors and create a chance of steady employment during a time when the Great Depression was coming to a halt. Before construction began, 8 different primary contractors got bids, putting them in charge of specific areas of the construction of the bridge. Each of these companies or corporations were responsible for getting specific materials, tools, and building methods and bringing them to the specified area necessary for the project. The Golden Gate Bridge was a steel project, so the steel was prefabricated in Pennsylvania and transported by ship through the Panama Canal to California. And once all the steel needed was stored on site, the piers and fender walls started, and once completed, were followed by the tower erection. So there are 2 towers on this bridge, the San Francisco Tower and the Marin Tower, which are both made entirely of structural steel, and both have piers drilled 65 feet deep into the ocean. Once these towers were completed, the first wire cables were strung in preparation for main cable spinning. Once the 2 main cables were constructed and installed, the entire weight of the roadway deck could then be suspended from the 2 cables, hence why it's called a suspension bridge. After the main steel frame was completely constructed with the 2 main towers and the 2 main cables, vertical suspenders were hung below the 2 main suspension cables, and 2 sections of the bridge's main span were joined in the middle. Then the roadway was ready for completion. Because the deck is hung below suspension cables on vertical suspenders, the bridge was constructed without the use of falsework, which is typical for suspension bridges. Back in 1700, a suspension bridge would not have been an option for the construction of this bridge because the first suspension bridge was built only in 1820. Before the Industrial Revolution, bridges were constructed of just wood and stone, but the length of the arc of the bridges were very limited. If the Golden Gate Bridge were to be constructed during this time, it would need lots and lots of false work, would be entirely made of timber or stone rather than steel, and would not be a suspension bridge. Frankly, the construction of this project in 1700 is physically impossible. The function of the bridge in 1700 would not reflect the culture of the area because it wasn't even inhabited at the time, and there was no metropolitan city around it. However, the bridge was constructed at a time of great need when the city was growing and the Great Depression was coming to an end. It was time for an easy way of transportation and steady employment. Upon completion, the bridge had significant cultural importance because it was recognized as a symbol of power and progress in the US, especially at a time of need. The cultural importance of the project is way more significant now than it would be if it was built back in the past. Ultimately, the Golden Gate Bridge set a precedent for suspension bridge design all around the world. Thank you.